Okay, we'll have the roll call to my left, Ralph Wells, Joe Campbell, and Ron Discharge as chairman, Randy Stillwell, Ryan Bray, and Dory Mino, our recording secretary. Call the meeting to order. First item is review and act on the minutes of meeting date November 20th, 2018.
Yep.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Unfinished old business. Z 2018-1451 of K&H Construction LLC requesting permission to work in an upland review area to excavate and install trench drain across driveway and discharge into the existing town runoff for property located at 42 Smith Road, Luso, map 1 MP, lot 15F, lot 5.
I don't believe we have anybody here to address this tonight, correct? Nobody's in the audience for this. So we did not receive new plans for this month, and we're supposed to receive revised plans. So I guess they just want to stable it until next month. Table this one.
Make a motion to table Z 2018-145 until our next meeting.
Motion been made, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Next item. Z 2018-1453 of Ecos Energy LLC requesting permission to work in an upland review area, install a chain link fence, grading and construction of sediment wraps in stormwater basins associated with a 1 MW ground mounted solar facility on property located at Plainfield Pike, Plainfield map 17, block 36, lot 69.
Hello, I'm Steve Royer with Ecos. I represent the company proposing the development. I do have a PowerPoint slide that you can walk through, and it'll give an idea of the project and what we're proposing to do in the upland buffers. Alright, so everybody can see that. Again, I'm Steve Breuer with Ecos Energy. We are a developer of ground-mounted solar facilities. Our sweet spot is anywhere from 1 megawatt, which is what we're proposing here, to 5 megawatts. We own and operate all of our own projects, as well as the ground beneath it. We do own the parcel of land that we're asking for approvals this evening. Currently, we own and operate 23 projects across the United States, California, Connecticut, Georgia, Minnesota, Indiana, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Vermont, with a pretty big focus of developing in the Northeast in the past few years. Our total portfolio is 44 megawatts between those 23 projects, so you can kind of see how that deciphers to average size, about 2 megawatts apiece. We started developing in the Northeast 2 years ago. This project aerial photo that I'm showing you guys right now is in Sudbury, Vermont. It's very similar topography. Is our we're getting used to the Northeast and constructing in this area outside of a lot of our other projects were in rural Indiana, desert lands in California, etc. 2 years ago, we constructed this facility in Spencer, Massachusetts. This is just south west of Worcester. This project is 4.5 megawatts, and it completed construction end of last year. Our most recent project, which many of you may have seen, is off of Route 32 at Wyndham, or in the town of Lebanon and Franklin, right at Williams Crossing Road. Many of you have probably seen this as you traveled over the bridge in Route 32. The project we're proposing here is a ground-mounted solar project, 1 megawatt. And now it's slated for 3,744 modules. That number is pretty solid right now. We've done an electrical design that holds that footprint true to what I'm showing you with our site plans. We will provide direct distribution to the utility through the Connecticut ZREC program. That PPA is 15 years, but the equipment on the site useful life is anywhere from 25 to 40. So this facility could generate power beyond the contractual agreement under the REC program to either self-wholesale, etc. So depending on technology, etc., we're looking at being here for a while. This is a picture of the project location. It's just east of 395 on Plainfield Pike Road. Lighthouse Church of God is in this location right here. Joe Leo's parcel, which is an older chicken coop that has been modified to, I think they do auto recycling and stuff like that. This is zoned industrial here. This parcel is also zoned industrial. And this black blob that you guys see is actually the facility. As you can see, around it, there's significant wetlands. There's the project location, the full parcel from an aerial view, without the site plan laid over it. So this is the proposed project. We've kept as much as we could out of the wetland buffers. There's no racking or modules that will be in the wetland buffers. Strictly stormwater basins, fencing, perimeter fencing for the site, as well as drainage and conveyance swales of either on-site or off-site drainage. We will be doing a ground mount racking system. This is a driven pile system where they simply take an H-beam and drive it into the ground. We haven't done a lot of subsurface exploration for foundation design, so we're either going to proceed with that or a ballasted foundation system, which actually we're building our 6 megawatt currently in Lebanon with a ballasted system. This is simply a concrete tub that's cast. It does very minimal ground disturbance, and it helps if there's a lot of subsurface rocks, things that would cause refusals of a driven pile. It gives us a pretty good idea of what we're up against from a construction standpoint. So those are the 2 foundations that we'll be exploring once we do some additional geotechnical investigation of the site. The site will be fenced all the way around its perimeter. This is a 1500 volt system, and NEC requires now that 1500 volt systems or greater are perimeter fenced. Also within the project, all of our equipment will be locked, so if there are trespassers, there's still a level of safety from anybody getting hurt attempting to do what trespassers do. The site will have a small gravel access roadway similar to the one you see here. And that's to basically get construction traffic to the site, as well as operation maintenance vehicles, fire truck, access, etc. Interconnection of the equipment on the site. So all of the solar panels we kind of grouped into a common trench. The big box on the left is where all of the leads that go out to the array field come up. That middle box is actually a transformer. And then that far box is basically an automated switch that's owned by the utility. That will be on site in some fashion, looking like that. That's the only real piece of flat work construction that's on the site. Outside of that, most of the native earth is below the panels, and the site pretty much remains as is. This is what the interconnection of the facility will look like out at the street. So in the lower right-hand corner, you can kind of see the east-west line of a typical utility line. And that device that you're looking at there is an automated switch, also known as a recloser. That recloser is kind of shared by us and the utility. It's the common point of demarcation. The utility owns to the right of that, and we own to the left. That recloser will sense voltages and either shut off if there's an issue on the utility side to protect our stuff, and it'll shut off to protect the utility from overspikes or something like that from our facility. It's a pretty common piece of equipment for interconnecting solar facilities, either on pole or pad mounted. So we have worked with Leo, who is the adjacent landowner, on securing an easement to the site. The main reason why we did that is they're currently accessing the site through our parcel, and it makes sense to continue to use that existing drive. There was no reason to build another parallel drive, impact more wetland buffers, do additional grading, etc. So that easement that you see in that cross-hatched area has been recorded, and not only is it there for access, but that's also our utility interconnection route. We will grade and construct a new aggregate surface over the entrance drive, as well as throughout Leo's parcel and down the hill to that hammerhead that you kind of see on the south end of the site. This is a zoom in of that access drive that kind of comes, so Leo's parcel is right up here. This is the rocking stretch entrance for construction. And then this grade comes down the hill, approximately 5 to 7 to 8%. You'll see that we are constructing the swale. It takes that drainage and directs it to stormwater basins that are further down the site. There's also an element of off-site drainage that we want to take to kind of direct that around our solar facility and kind of convey it through the site without having to oversize our stormwater basins, which there will be 3. This furthest one north, and then there's 2 more on that next slide to the south.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What, on the plan, I can't read it. It says wood chip burn.
Yep, and I'll actually get into that in a little bit. So this is mid-site. Again, as I stated, there's some off-site drainage, about 8 or 9 acres off-site that runs through this site. What we want to do is capture that and direct it around our solar facility. We've got some minor grading that will happen within the facility, and that's so the racking kind of follows the undulation of the ground, but if there are steep slopes, such as what's illustrated right here, we've got to smooth that out. So there is some site grading that will occur, as well as we've got a swale here that goes this way, and then a swale that kind of catches additional stormwater and directs it to its ultimate where it went before. The grading design also has stilling basins that will help disperse that runoff. It's kind of a dip, and then it overflows overflows and enter the wetland area in that scenario. These basins are sized not only for interim for construction, but as well as for the long-term requirements set forth by DEEP in the 2002 and 2004 stormwater and erosion control guidelines. Just generally, renewable energy benefits and goals obviously helps the town and state meet their renewable goals. There are carbon benefits. This is a marginal piece of usable land, and it's a productive use of it. The use can be viewed as temporary, be it 15 or 20, 25 years, with little impacts to the land itself. There's very little burden on town services. Aesthetics, the site is hidden from a lot of view sheds around the site. The facility creates very little noise outside of construction, debris, etc. There's not a lot of waste that's produced. Traffic-wise, after construction, operations and maintenance has 1 or 2 vehicles a week, just sometimes 1 or 2 a month, depending on how the site is operating. There's no lighting on the site, and it's a quick construction timeline. To build this facility, we're probably looking at 3 months. This is a picture actually I took today out in Lebanon of our 6 megawatt that we're constructing there. It illustrates a similar stilling basin that we'd be constructing the wetland buffer in that area. You can see the stormwater pond is being excavated here right now currently, and that overflow goes over this berm, comes out, and then leaches into the wetlands. This construction here has also been currently performed in a wetland buffer. You can also see the posts of the perimeter fence of the facility starting to go in. When we purchased the project, John Ianni with Highland Soils performed all of our wetland delineation, as well as 3 vernal pools were identified on the site. The closest 2 to our project are vernal pools 2 and 3. Vernal pool 1 is actually on the residential parcel, which we own. It's adjacent to the west. But these 2 vernal pools have been delineated. We aren't doing any impacts to the vernal pool envelope, and when I jump to the critical terrestrial habitat of this vernal pool, which is basically a 500-foot offset of the envelope, it adheres to Clements and Calhoun's best development practices when it comes to the level of development within that envelope. Their recommendation is 25 to 30%. This project's around 11. And then you pointed out the note of the wood chip berm. So one of the elements of vernal pools is that you can potentially have amphibious creatures, and instead of installing silt fence around the perimeter site, which typically is seen in working with CLA, our engineers here, who can probably can definitely field more questions about some of the erosion control elements that they put into the plan. But in general, that wood chip berm is acting as erosion control, but still allows for amphibious creatures to enter across the site unobstructed. That's kind of an overview on the total project. I can open it up to questions from anybody in the room.
The wood chip berm is your temporary BMP, eventually that will be allowed to just
Yeah, exactly.
For the record, Bob Russo, I'm a soil scientist and wetland biologist with CLA Engineers. We've worked with Steve on this project to do the erosion and sedimentation control and submittals to DEP. We've had good success with wood chip berms, for just the reasons you said. Eventually, they'll rot into the soil, but in the interim, for a couple of years, they provide a really functional barrier to erosion and sedimentation, but they allow frogs and salamanders to migrate back and forth freely. And we've used them on several other sites, and they work very well for those purposes.
When do you plan on installing?
This would be a spring construction. We've got a portfolio of 2 other projects that are currently permitted with DEEP. One is in Griswold and one is in Summers. And so the idea is to get this one caught up and do a spring construction on all 3 projects for efficiencies.
When it's finished, the area, excuse me, around the solar panels will be all seeded and
Yep.
grass and...
Yeah, so typically we use a mix of clover and fescue. However, we have started to explore sheep for grazing sites. It's kind of the way to go, just because they, depending on just your series of mowings, just how well you maintain that ground under construction. We've learned a lot in the Northeast. There's a lot of rock, subsurface stuff that prevents finite grading a full site. Mowing, is becoming, our operations and maintenance in the Northeast is more expensive than we've assumed. And so, from that standpoint, we're exploring other options as well. And then, depending on what kind of grazing we have on site, we have to change our seed mixture to fit that.
Once it's stabilized, you get the final stabilization, do you anticipate anything in the runoff?
Our experience is that you really don't have a problem with runoff at that point. For instance, the site that Steve was showing, where they're adding the last single megawatt unit of power, between last year, when the initial installation was done on that site, over the course of the year, the vegetation grew in incredibly thick and covered it. And it's kind of like having a hayfield that was abandoned about a year or 2 ago. There's just thick vegetation there, and you really don't have a problem with stormwater runoff from that point. The project is set up, though, so that those basins that Steve showed that start out as temporary sediment traps are left there as stormwater basins, which may be overkill, but is probably a good idea just in terms of operation and maintenance of the site, because you do have an access road, places where you're collecting some runoff. So.
Do we have any other discussion?
I don't have any issues with the design or the erosion sediment controls. I think it looks pretty good.
We obviously will be preparing a stormwater plan that's submitted to DEEP. Well, actually, it'll be submitted locally, given this is a locally approved project. But this plan set is the basis of that SWIP.
Now, did the siting council approve this site, or?
They have not, and the reason being is we originally went to the siting council with a 3.5 megawatt facility on not only this industrial site, as well as 2 other 1 megawatt facilities on the adjacent residential parcel. That adjacent residential parcel also had a wetlands crossing. We were closer to the buffers, and at that point, the 3 megawatt facility was denied by the siting council. Since then, we've taken a step back, shrunk the footprint, as well as put it on an industrially zoned parcel that's not residentially zoned. At that point, 1 megawatt and less is a locally approvable facility. Anything greater than 1 megawatt then falls in the jurisdiction of the city council. So that is why I'm in front of the town instead of the city council.
How many acres is the panels gonna take?
The footprint of the facility is approximately 7.5, I remember off the top of my head. The project fence line is 6 acres. So that's everything from perimeter fence, obviously.
So any discussion? Questions at this time? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Z 2018-1493.
For a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, the next item. Z 2018-1461 of Robert Linda Steele, requesting permission to work in upland review in inland wetlands area for construction of single-family home with activity within 25 feet of an on-site wetland previously approved 2015-081 for activity within the 40-foot property located on Pondville Road, Noosa. Map 1MP, 115B, lot 14.
My name is Greg Law with Killingly Engineering Associates. I do have a new set of plans that I would like to deliver to you. They're revised through to today's date, December 18th. The property that we're working on is a parcel that's located at the northeast end of Noosa Pond. It's on Pondville Road. I was before this commission back in 2015, almost to this month, actually to this month, December. Back then, it was property owned by Augustus Johnson Trust, and they were looking to market the property. So we had come before you with a house plan, the clearing, a dock area, a beach area, the development of the lot so that they could market the lot. It has since sold, it's owned now by the Seals, and we're here before you with an application that's similar but with a larger footprint of the house. That's the main difference. So what we did is, if you remember back in 2015, we were proposing that there was an area of wetlands that would be altered down along the shoreline that equaled 275 square feet. To offset that, we were doing a wetland mitigation area just off to the east here that's shaded in blue here, and that area was 290 square feet. That hasn't changed. We've kept that the same to what was approved in the 2015 application. Again, the footprint got bigger. The revision that we have on the plan today is that we have moved the house a little bit more forward towards the road. There is a zoning regulation that allows us to take the average frontages for a setback of houses in the immediate area. So I put a zoning table on there, and I know you haven't seen this yet, Ryan, but it's more of a zoning thing. But section 14.6 of the zoning regulations allow us to do that. We've analyzed 13 of the homes in the adjacent area, and we came up with that the neighboring lot, the average was like 25.1 feet. We're proposing 30.1, so that got it a little bit forward than the 40 feet, which helps us back here keep this buffer area or this corridor around this wetlands. I was trying to simulate what was on the 2015 application. So The area here stays roughly the same, it got slightly bigger, but we are keeping that 30 feet all along of the buffer area, which the report that we had from the soil scientist Joseph Thoreau at the time, that was his recommendation, that we maintain that corridor there. And that's the same report, I did run this by him, we're keeping that, similar items. We have force main with a septic system out here, so it's a municipal septic system. We will be having a proposed well. There's an existing concrete retaining wall. They did start doing some of the site work on this past year. We still have the 15-inch RCP that comes off of the town drainage over on the south east corner of the property. There was a ditch that ran down into this property, kind of eroded a lot. So we're still calling for this modified riprap swale and an impact depression to be installed. The other thing that we're going to do is, because we have a larger roof area with this house, we are running the roof leaders, and we call for them to be run in there, and we've made this more of a depression at the end, so it will hold a little bit of water to it, not just create more erosion down to that. But we did want to kind of keep the rainwater, the first flush of water that comes off the roofs, into this area and not directly put that into the to the wetlands. And that's really what we have, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, and the other thing I'll just mention is, for erosion and control, at the bottom of the slope of this, we have kept that the same, where it will be silt fence backed with staked hay bales. That was also in the recommendation of the wetlands report from Joseph Thoreau back in 2015, so we've kept that all along the slope here still. December 15th of 2015.
I'll say
21st.
21st, yeah.
Yeah, so the house is slightly closer to the wetlands than the original, but not by much. The beach down here that was approved back in 2015 remains unchanged. So, and they can actually construct the beach today because the permit is still valid.
And I do have the original one here, so that was the original one showing, we're keeping that same similar area open there, trying to keep that same buffer area away from the wetlands.
The first house was about the size of the garage.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was more of a, it's a tricky site. There was a lot of grading with it no matter what, so, it's definitely a costly site. I mean, it is just a slope down. That's the biggest thing, is making sure that construction methods are done properly, and the silt fence and wetlands and hay bales are maintained properly during construction. So.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve Z 2018-1461.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, our next item is Z 2018-1469 of David Aponte, requesting permission to work in an upland review area for installing a geothermal loop on property located at 155 Cemetery Road, Plainfield, map 8, block 48, lot 10.
This house is located in front of the apartments. You have the pond located in front of the apartments, and we have some houses against the road. The pond sits between them and the apartments. This individual has a greenhouse out behind his house, and he wants to use a geothermal loop to heat the greenhouse. He is working within the upland review area of the pond, and so he does need a permit, and we will have plans next month. And, just basic plans, but we can't act on it tonight, so we'll look at it next month. Yes.
Make a motion to accept Z 2018-1469.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, citizen participation. Correspondence?
We have CACUAC letter. CACUAC, County Association of Conservation and Wetlands. And they are looking for the renewal. So it is, let's see, $60. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not the renewal, this is for their annual, meeting, and that has already gone by, so. Sorry about that, I thought they were looking for renewal. We have State of Connecticut, they are looking to redo a bridge, I believe this is, the bridge that goes over Dow Road for 395. And this is just a notification that they're going to be working on it. So, I don't think you want to look at it, but if you do, it's in the file. That's it.
Correspondence?
That was correspondence.
Okay. Complaints?
No complaints this month.
Other? No, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.